Alright, Lisa and Ty, we're going to talk about the famous Martha Josie Jb Knot Rein. And the reason I call it Jerry Bigley too, because I called him, he world champion bull rider, and I said, you braid your own bull ropes. Can you braid me a pair of barrel racing reins? Because I went to the rodeo the other night, my hand slipped on the reins. So this is how they're the Martha Josie Jerry Bigley.
And your reins are a tool for barrel racing. These knot reins can simplify things. They can get you more consistent with your hands. And what I mean by that, if I'm inconsistent with my hands, if I'm up here one time, my hand's down here the next time, I'm going to be confusing my horse. And so I want to be consistent where my hand placement is every time. That way my horse gets more confident. I know what he's supposed to feel like. Having your reins adjusted properly is important. A good rule of thumb, you should be able to take the slack out of your reins and be a couple inches in front of your saddle horn. And that's for most people, and that's for competition. A lot of people, they'll come to the clinic and the reins, you can just about throw them over your shoulder, and they think, well, I've got bad hands, so I'm going to let the reins out real long. Well, all that does is create more room for you to pull on the reins. And so I want to shorten my reins where I can do all my riding right in front of my saddle horn. I don't want to be balancing on my horse's mouth, but I want to be light and quiet with my hands. These reins are one of the most important things because they connect to the bit. Something else I want to show you. These are easy to adjust. A lot of people will tie knots in them. Just simply slide the brass buckle towards the knot, and that will shorten your rein. If you're putting a snap on your rein.
And why do we use two snaps?
Not only do we use two snaps, we use brass snaps, and I do not prefer a scissor snap. Scissor snaps are notorious for the spring will get loose and they'll open up. Every clinic somebody has a scissor snap that breaks, but the brass, it will bend, is a little more forgiving, and it's a little safer. But the reason we like snaps on our reins is I want to be able, if I'm leading my horse, I want to be able to unsnap one side. If my horse ever gets in a bind, I want to be able to get those reins off. One time I had a horse get his leg run through the reins. I didn't have any snaps on the reins, and I was in a bind. And so when you put your snap on, you simply run your rein through that snap, and this is where a lot of people get in trouble. You want this end to go underneath your main rein. You just simply slide it underneath and back through the buckle, and then I'll always give myself about an inch of tail under there. Now, where I slide this top part is what's going to adjust or lengthen or shorten my reins. So remember, the closer the brass buckle is to your snap, the longer your rein's going to be. When you bring the brass buckle to the knot, that's going to shorten your rein. Having your reins even is important. In other words, and I'm going to snap these reins up, and I always place the snap to where it is going to the outside. I don't want anything. I've seen these get snapped to a tie down, and I don't ever want it to rough. I always put the rough away from your horse. That's tie downs or anything. Put the rough part of the snap away from your horse.
Okay, Ty, not much money's ever won in the center here either.
No, in the center of the reins or the middle of your reins, if your hand stays there in the run, there's not a lot of money won there because your horse is going to be stiff. I want to tip my horse's nose and let his body follow. In the middle of the rein, I'm turning my horse's body. If you want to slow a horse down, slow his forward momentum down, leave your hands right here. If you want a fast, snappy turn, slide your hand down your rein, get that horse's nose, and he'll snap that turn. Making sure that your rein is even. When I say even, your knots are across from each other. A lot of times people will get the knot reins and they don't understand that if I've got one side shorter than the other, then now my knots are uneven. I've got knots up here and knots down here. So if I'm going like this to the first barrel, probably fixing to duck in front of that barrel. So make sure your knots are even, just simply by adjusting them. And then make sure the shank of your bit is even when you're checking this, and that way your knots will be running directly across from each other, which will help you establish a little more consistency with your hands. And remember, this is your neutral position. If you're going to a barrel and you have one hand higher than the other, it's hard for a horse to go in a straight line. A lot of anticipation is created by what our hands are doing. Keeping them low, quiet, over the withers. I pretend that there's a box right there. The distance between my hands should be like holding a plate of food. I don't want my hands out wide, and I don't want them up by the horse's ears, but right over the withers where I've got more control of my horse's body.
We've won a lot of money with this, haven't we, Lisa?
Yes, ma'am.
It's a great training aid.